Okay, so welcome everybody to the Calling Eve podcast, what is formerly the Blessed Mess podcast. The house is still a mess, and I'm hoping it's still blessed. I don't know. but we're calling it Calling Eve because it just explains more what it's about, because we're pretty much geared towards the women, the
Eves
the
of the
better
world.
sex. No, I did not mean that.
The climax of
dudes.
creation.
Yes.
I mean,
exactly.
I didn't. That's not my phrase. I just read it somewhere. Wink,
I know.
wink.
Shona and I both share loving an author named John Eldredge and his wife Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've mentioned him before on the podcast because I tend to channel my mother sometimes. She's always talking about, and Bill Hybels says this, and John Ortberg, she always has amazing things to say and reads cool stuff. And I tend to be the exact same way, just that I'm always saying, John Eldredge says this. Anyway, Shona is with us today, which is really exciting. Shona Hjertberg is here from the Mama Movement, all the way from Canada via Växjö.
/ Växjö.
Yeah, they're almost the same. Same general area.
Ridiculous.
So Shona has her own video blog, a homepage dedicated to motherhood and spirituality, and it's what are your milestones? You have 3 milestones.
3 milestones? Do I?
Don't you? No.
Oh, the 3D, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Like the whole point of the Mama Movement, when I was focusing on what I really wanted to do, is that it's to come alongside and encourage and to challenge moms. So anything that I write, anything that I pour out from my heart, anything that spills out from my spirit is all about to encourage and to challenge. But the 3 milestones, what you're talking about is I do everything with 3 dimensions at play. The body, the soul, and the spirit. So anything that I write or anything that I share, I always look at it from 3 dimensions because it's so fundamental how we do life, so that we do life from a place of abundance and not exhaustion. And if you don't have the 3D working together in all that you're doing, you're going to get exhausted pretty fast being a mom.
And I mean, generally, it would be pretty easy to be exhausted since you don't just have one kid, right?
No, I have maybe more than one.
So how many kids do you have, Shona?
Yeah, we had 5 kids in a 6-year time span with no multiple births, like no twins, no triplets.
Yeah. Keep them busy.
Yes, in more ways than that. Sorry, I don't know if that's appropriate or not.
Oh, everything works here.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, so we had 5 kids in a 6-year time span. 3 girls, 2 boys. Not in that order, but that's the total thus far.
Yeah, pretty cool. So far, so good. And I have to say, it's always a joy to see you mother. Because your kids are they're just amazing. They're a blessing.
That's really kind to say.
And you're such an amazing mom. And out of the whole Mama movement, I think you've helped a lot of people. I know I love reading it and watching it. What's the address to your page?
Yes, it's www.mamamovement.com.
Mama with 2 M's, right?
Mama with 2 M's, yeah.
Yep.
Mama with 2 M's.
And you guys should really check it out because it's so cool. It's really, really neat because it has those 3 dimensions to it. And you have a degree in psychology, right?
I do, yep.
So,
I always joke that, because I didn't want to finish my degree. And I shouldn't say this, but it's true. My parents made me because they had invested money in it.
Oh, yeah.
So, I dropped out once to go backpacking with a boyfriend at the time. And then they were like, no, you have to get back and do this. And then at that point, I was like, I don't want to finish my degree. I want to go to Bible school because I had, found the Lord. And I was like, I don't need a degree. I'm just going to serve the Lord the rest of my life. And my parents were like, heck no, girl, you're going to finish that diploma. So I did finish. And I think it's ironic because in that season, I thought, I'm never going to use this for anything. This is such a waste of time finishing. And I literally just did it because I wanted to honor my parents and because I felt bullied into doing it. And now looking back, I'm like so thankful because he's really used it full circle.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, so it's good that I have a degree in psych because...
Yeah, absolutely. Because
my kids
it
are
gives
normal.
A depth. No, I know, sorry. They turned out so good.
No.
You need a degree to be able to do that now. So how did the Mama movement come about?
This is a funny story because my personality, but for your listeners, I'm pretty intense. And so I've been a stay-at-home mom for forever. And people were like, you should start a blog. You should start a blog. And I was so arrogant in the sense, I don't want to start a blog. I don't need to start a blog just because you think I have so much free time. Like, I have other stuff to do with my life. Which is kind of funny because I don't know why I was so against it. I just felt like people were saying to do it because they thought I had nothing to do. Right? So I got very defensive, which is not at all like my personality. So the way it came about was I have a best friend in Canada, and her and I did life together when we lived in Canada, and we did parenting together. And we bounced our parenting theories and our failures and our successes off one another. And then when we moved to Sweden, her and I were having a Skype date, and she just said, I miss your Shona wisdom. I miss your advice. I miss your counsel. Like, I don't like not doing mothering without you. And she said, you should start a blog. And because it came from her and from her heart, literally the next day, it was up and running, like with full content. Like, I literally just did it.
You just went, I went, go big or go home.
Go big or go home. I was all in. And it's because it came from such a place where I thought, oh, there is a need for this. Yeah. So I started that in the summer of 2012. So we're going on 2 years soon.
And the book, because you have a book out called The Mama Movement, which is an excellent read for anybody that's either thinking about parenting or is in there, or even if you're a teacher as well. Anybody dealing with kids.
Yeah, I have one woman in Canada. Her boys are older. They're teenagers going on to college, and she loves the book because she runs an at-home daycare, and she's actually passed it on to some of her parents.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I was really encouraged by that. The book I wrote in 2009, which is quite some time ago. I was home after birthing our fourth child, and I had this goal. I wanted to write a book before I was 30. And I had Emmers when I was 29. So I'm like, it's do or die. I'm either going to write a book or I'm not. And I had that goal when I was 9 years old. My brother and I made a bet. I was going to write a book by 30 and I was going to own a horse by 40. And I remember we made the bet in my parents' car on the way home from Grandma and Grandpa on the farm. And we bet, I think it was like $10.
Did you get those $10?
I have not. I told my brother when the book got published, I'm like, you owe me $5. You owe me half of that money. And actually, we got a horse this last November. So, I'm...
You need to get working on some new goals.
Yes, I need some new goals. So I wrote the book then, but the book was so raw. But it was complete, but it was raw. It was the first cut, the first edition. I just kind of like, I had a game plan, I had a format, I spilled out my heart. So that was 2009, and I did not revisit the book until I had the blog up and running. And I'm like, now's the time. Now's the time to go back, to add wisdom, because I had more children, more years in my life, more experiences under my belt. I needed to go back and edit. I was stronger in the Lord and gained some spiritual insight. So I needed to go back and edit. And then I had other people edit it as well. So it came out just a couple months after the blog was up and running. I think it launched that fall or was published and released.
Well, that's really cool, though, since they're, work together, with each other.
And that wasn't the intent. It was so funny because once the blog was up and going, I was like, oh, okay, now. Like I didn't have this master business plan. Yeah. I just kind of... and then I have 2 kids' books, which unfortunately should have been released last November, but it's one of those things where you work with illustrators and it takes way longer than you ever think it should.
Most creative processes, I think, do. My album, speaking of my album, which is like...
Which we were talking about in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I understand.
Things like that just happen, sort of. But it's really cool to see where you've taken the... with your challenges that you have. I love the challenges.
I'm glad.
Which is really, really good. And you've been talking about the love languages of children lately.
I have.
Which is such a cool insight to your kids.
And it's important because I think parents hit a wall at some point. They kind of pass that stage of caregiver, and then they start to realize the individual personality of the child. And unfortunately, many parents don't want to admit that sometimes that clashes with their own personality. Yeah. If it was 2 adults coming into the same room with those 2 different personalities, you might not choose to do relationship with them. Yeah. But when you're a parent, you don't have that choice. And in a good way. But I think so many parents don't take it deeper on, okay, well, what is my child's love language? Why are we having conflict? Why do we come up against each other in a wrong way? And if you can if you can understand your child's love language, you can understand how to flow in and through that love and really still have that parental relationship with agape love, which is so necessary to succeid in the teenage years, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, your oldest is 9, right?
9.
So you're getting there.
Oh.
What do you think through the years? What's been the best versus the worst parenting advice that you've ever gotten?
Ever gotten? Like I received?
Okay, we'll do this way. What is the worst parenting advice that you've ever gotten?
Wow, there's so much bad advice out there.
I feel like everybody's got an opinion. It's crazy.
I could just go on for 2 hours about that easily. I think the worst advice that anyone has ever given is time will tell. Let it ride out. I don't like that because I feel like that gives parents an excuse to be passive. And I do not like passiveness.
It's the same thing with, time will heal all the wounds. No, that's another one of those. It's like, things fester.
Yeah.
It's like...
Make it worse.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the worst.
Emotional gangrene.
Yeah. And I think that's a bad advice because sometimes your kids are going through a season and people are like, oh, just ride it out.
Yeah, like, it'll get better. All kids are like this now.
And it really could be indicative to their personality. Or maybe they're feeling an external pressure and they need to communicate it. And if we don't actually address the underlying issues, then we do fail them into adulthood.
Absolutely. I think with a lot of, we've been going through a bit of we've had a lot of things going on in our family, but, things like ADHD.
Yep.
Those things, it's like, it's so easy to say, oh, this is just a phase, it'll get better, as opposed to dealing with the situation and making sure that you have the best possible tools for your child. And I think, from what I've understood when we've talked to doctors and stuff like that, it's that a lot of people don't get help until early teens. And by then, the kids have lost so much in school because the parents were kind of blind to what was going on.
They were in denial or they didn't want to realize.
Yeah. And I personally know that because we kind of knew where things were heading pretty early on. But it was also one of those, I'm sure this is normal, it'll get better. Yeah. And now I'm so happy that we actually, we're dealing with stuff in a good way that is, helping our kids, which is really cool. So what is the best advice that you've ever gotten?
The best advice? I guess the best advice I've ever gotten is that you're more than capable. I think so many moms are feeling less than or inadequate at their mothering job because society that we live in right now, it's pretty confusing to be a woman. I'm not going to lie. So
it's that's like in everything. Either you're too much or you're too little. Either you're not enough or you're just too much to handle. Yeah. Sort of. I think we have somebody coming in here. Elliot.
Hey.
Elliot.
Hey, Bubs.
This is my number 1. Elliot. Shona and I are recording a podcast. Do you want to be in here? Whoop!
So I think that's the best advice that I've gotten because I feel like if you know your worth as a mom, you know your calling as a mom.
Yeah.
You're empowered in such a beautiful way, not in an aggressive, dominant way, but you're empowered in a really feminine way. Yeah. So you are more than capable.
Absolutely, and just the fact of how amazing it is that you are strong in a feminine way, that it's not the same way as a masculine way. There's something precious about motherhood.
Yeah.
There's something untouchable about motherhood. Yeah. I was reading a book that was just amazing called Becoming Myself, which is Stacey Eldridge's latest book, and she was talking about this guy who played the cello, classic cello, and he'd been asked by this nun to come and play for her boys, and he's like, I don't think that's so good, cellists playing, for a bunch of, young guys, it's just,
for a bunch of dudes.
It's not going to go over well, and she's like, oh, no, our boys are good boys. And these were criminal, it was like in a penitentiary or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And yes, Elliot?
Kan du gå ut och hämta min bilbana?
Okay, so after a short intermission where I had to run out and wake my husband up and ask him to help my son. Co-parenting. It's
Co-parenting.
awesome. No, I was talking about how he comes and he's going to play the cello for all of these inmates. And he's so nervous because, like, right before he comes, he gets out, he hears them all cheering, you know, and there's this scantily clad girl in a bikini doing some kind of hip-hop number, and he's going, oh, Lord, that's what they like. They are going to eat me alive. And then when he goes out there, he you know, starts playing the song, and he goes, oh, you know, this song always reminded me of my mother. And he's so nervous, and he hears people, you know, things are getting restless in the audience, and he's going, oh, Lord, you know, they're getting really tired of this now. And then he looks up and he sees that people are crying, you know, and then he plays another song, you know, or, you know, they cheer like he's never, you know, heard before. And he plays another song, and then somebody goes, can you play the one about mothers again, you know? And he goes, okay, so it wasn't really about how beautiful he was playing it. It was that the concept of mother, you know, to these boys that hadn't seen their mothers in a long time.
And that makes me think of Wendy from Peter Pan with the Lost Boys. Do you remember that? It's that cartoon, the Disney cartoon. And they say, what's a mother? Because Wendy wants to go home, and she's like, have you forgotten who Mother is? Because they think it's Nana the dog. Does she have silky ears? You know, and then she starts singing that song about your mother and my mother, and she and all the Lost Boys are crying, and it's really
it's such a powerful and beautiful thing. And fathers are amazing, obviously, on so many levels, but there's just something special about motherhood.
And it makes me, I just want to share this story because it's pertinent to what we're talking about. One of my daughters, who is soon 8, the second oldest, there's a little boy in her class, and Zoe was just telling a story about how we were taking some car trip, and the baby was screaming the whole time, you know, because babies never do that, whatever. So, and the little boy turned to her and was very snarky and said, well, why did your mom have so many kids then? And Zoe turned to him, and she was like sassy back. She's like, because she loves kids. Like, but that's kind of the world's opinion. Why did you do that? Why do you do that? Why do you put yourself in a position of having children, even if it's 1 or 8 or 28? Like,
well, I think that's because things are so narcissistic nowadays.
Yes.
Everything is about, you know, well, how will it affect my life?
That's right.
You know, and
we've lost that sacred beauty to that there is something untouchable about motherhood. There really is. And therefore, it's a big responsibility and a big call. And that's why, like, with the mama movement, I think it's so important that women are encouraged, because a little encouragement goes such a long way.
Absolutely.
And a little challenge to do better, to blossom more is really, I mean, just, it doesn't take much to get people on the right track and really get encouraged to get going.
Absolutely. It's so cool to see you in action, and it's
cool or ridiculous or
no, it's awesome. I think you're so fun with your kids, and I'm like, and you're so energetic. You can keep up with like 10 kids if you want to.
Goodness.
Don't you're like challenge accepted.
Like, challenge accepted 10. I'm at 5 kids now. How many years to get to 10? Dun, dun, dun.
No, but
it's not even funny because that's so what my head did. Like, I could have 5 kids. I could have 5 more.
I can do that. Oh my gosh. No, but and we've got some fun stuff coming up as well. I was saying last week's podcast, I was talking about how there's some changes coming up in the Calling Eve thing, and we're going to be doing some stuff together, Mama Movement and Calling Eve.
It's going to be so fun to co-labor, because I think, well, first of all, we are meant to be together.
Yes, we are.
We have a divine plan that God has orchestrated.
Sister from another mister.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. But also there's just, and I mean this so sincerely, there's such a work to be done.
Yeah.
And it only takes, 20 seconds of courage to get the message out there and actually get the momentum rolling. Because, at the end of the day, we're doing what we're passionate about, but we're only passionate about it because we've lived and we've had experience and we know that people are in need.
Exactly.
And that need needs to be met. And not
it really
yesterday.
does.
Like a week ago it should have been met, Because it really breaks my heart to see, especially women, but mothers and women in general feel less than, and to suffer, and to not know their worth, and not know their strength, and not know their call, and not feel encouraged.
And that rubs off on daughters.
Absolute.
Yeah,
that's so
which
true.
is one of the things that we've been talking about as well. I mean, that, sort of covering the whole spectrum of women.
Yes.
From little girl to empty nesters and mature, wise old women, just this, the fact that as a mother, if you have bad self-confidence, that's going to rub off, Kids, they do what they see. They don't do what, they don't do what you tell them. They do what you do. I think my dad said, my grandpa used to say, don't do as I do as I say.
Yeah.
And it's
what
like,
I told
what
you
the
about.
heck?
Yeah.
What's that? Like,
we got told that too. And I think it's so important because I have 3 girls, and Emma Jane, who's 4 turning 5, she said to me, she's like, is it fun to be a mom? I'm like, it's the best job in the world. She's like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And I think, like, that's so important for me that they see that I have joy in my mothering.
Yeah.
That
they are a joy.
That they are a joy. That to me, like, okay, life can get messy, really, considering my life in some situations right now. But my mothering, it's always like that place of joy, And I saw it on some worship song on YouTube, and they were saying from Bethel that, we've crossed over the line, and some people may think we're crazy, but we found our joy. There's such a difference between happiness being a human emotion and joy being a spiritual emotion. And I think that, moms need to find their joy again. Yeah. And women need to find...
joy is so much more. Joy is a heart thing as opposed to just I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's not bubblegum.
No.
It's finding a deep meaning and joy in life. We've been doing that with our kids these past few weeks. We've been going through the fruits of the Spirit. We started with being loving, and I would take examples with my kids, like, okay, there's a boy, and he went out on recess, and another group of boys came. They took his hat and they threw it down on the ground and they stomped on it, and he was really sad. And then this other boy came, and he took his hat and he took it in and he washed it and made it clean and gave it back to him. Who was doing the loving thing here, and just putting emphasis on that. And last week we did joy, and talking about how finding your joy in situations and finding the things that you can choose to be joyful. Because joy is not only an emotion, it's also a choice. It's a decision that you make. And it says
to stir up the joy within us. That's biblical. You have to stir up that joy, and that requires
We're doing peaceful
effort.
This week.
Yes.
We might have to redo next week.
I saw peaceful on your chalkboard when I
all smeared.
All smeared with little girl fingerprints. Oh, yes. So sweet. Yeah, but we have a lot of cool stuff coming up, and a lot of a lot of potential to really be effective. That's what I think is so exciting for me, because I get, and I mean this, my personality, I can get so project-oriented. Like, if you give me something to do, I'm going to do it. Sister. Yeah. If you give me something to do, I'm going to do it. I'm going to check my thing off the list, and I'm going to get her done. But to actually feel that there is such a bigger purpose that we're just, like, tiptoeing on the edge of, that's so ridiculously exciting to me.
It is. So the end of summer, early fall, we've got some stuff coming up. We're actually leaving in less than an hour to go on our little
working
vacation where we are going to be working on some of the stuff and the logistics of everything.
Yes.
But
while being feminine and having a nice ladies evening /
there will
weekend.
There will be sauna, and there will be
high heels and maybe some straight hair.
Exactly. There will be a jacuzzi. A working jacuzzi, naturally. But anyway, it's been so nice to have you with.
Thank you that I could be here.
And I really look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Shona, and I hope that you guys got something good out of this. And don't forget to check out the Mama Movement, and you can order your book from the homepage too, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, so we've got the web shop associated straight with.
Do you have the jewelry as well?
Oh, this is so ridiculous. I do have the jewelry. I just haven't uploaded the picture.
Because you gave me some awesome earrings.
Yeah.
I can't find one of them, which breaks my heart.
Yeah, but I have extras. I got extras for you, girl.
Because I love the earrings and the bracelet. They are actually my favorite pieces of jewelry right now.
It's really nice. So on the web shop is the book, the vision boards, and the jewelry. And I mean, eventually the children's books, but we'll get there when we get there. We'll cross that bridge when we
will.
Yeah, but thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been awesome, and hope tune in next week or whenever I get my butt in gear and actually make another podcast.
Awesome.
But I hope you guys have a great time. See you later.